balance means not only healthy, qualitatively very healthy. So it talks about qualitative health and happiness, which is a living example of philosophies in real life, and that is the beauty of Ayurveda. So I will be speaking about, to begin with, the principles of Ayurveda, just an introduction, so that when I speak more, then we have a thorough understanding. But mainly I will be focusing on those principles which helps us to stay very healthy and to have a balanced and appropriate lifestyle. The goal of Ayurveda is to stay in harmony, with everything, to stay in balance and in a continuum, in a harmonious way with the universe, with the Mother Nature. And when we stay in harmony with the Mother Nature blesses us with the blessings of health and happiness. The interesting thing is that how to stay this in balance or in harmony, they are all very simple. Of having democratic nature, that an individual, a person, has a right to decide in Ayurveda what is good for me and what should I do. It's like in a democracy. You are living in a democracy, I am living in the biggest democracy of the world, and we have that right to speak. But all the democratic countries have right and responsibility. So if I have a right, I have a responsibility. I should not throw litter on the road. I should not drive my car at 150 miles an hour. So there are simple things which I should follow so that my nation can grow. So this right and responsibility comes with an individualism. So when I talk about that, Ayurveda gives this right to a person for their health. This right comes with responsibility of behavior, responsibility of lifestyle in the form of food, in the form of our way how we live, in the form of how to stay in harmony. So there are several simple things. I will begin with a beautiful example. This example is about a saint or a monk, and this monk belonged to the South India. In the India, we are a very big country, south part of India. So one day a mother, widow mother, with her very young son, small young son, went to this monk. The purpose of mother was to teach the child not to eat so much of sugar. It's not good. But the child was not obeying the mother's order. So she thought, let me go to the monk, and if monk will tell him, he will understand this, that sugar is not good. So she went, and she was living in a far villages. So she came 2 days walking and then reached to the monk ashram. And when she went to the monks and she requested, the monk looked at her very calmly and peacefully, said, "Mother, can you come next week?" So she was angry. I walk for 2 days and I have to go back for 2 days and again start coming for 2 days. It will be too much for me. But she thought, okay. So she went back. And after a week she came with the same too much of efforts to come. So when she came, the monk looked at the son, the boy, and said, "Son, it is not good to eat so much of sugar. So you should not eat so much of sugar." The mother got more angry that you should tell this the last week. Why you took so much of energy of mine? I am very poor. I am a widow and I have no support at home. So the monk said that, "Mother, when you came last week, and you had this request of telling your son not to eat so much of sugar. At that time, even I was eating so much of sugar. So first I stopped it, and now I have a right to tell your son not to eat. So this is a very beautiful message that to be healthy and to be happy, we should think about this simple principle that we expect so much from around. A wife would expect from the husband would expect from the wife, or we expect from children, or children will expect from us. And then everywhere there is too much of expectation without thinking that we whatever we expect, we don't do that. So a father would tell the son, alcohol is not right, but in the evening they will start taking a small glass of drink. So it do not have any impact, no impact. So if a mother would say smoking is not good, and then when the child is going into the market, buy me a pack of Marlboro. So these things should be, it's like a very small thing. But Ayurveda believes that we should start from the self, and we should start behaving with the ideal code of conduct to stay this happy and healthy. So this is first thing. The another thing is really very important to understand between these differences of the philosophies or way of life between the East and the West, because sometimes there is too much of stress, and ultimately, like my previous speakers told, that too much of stress takes you to the illnesses, sometimes backache or sometimes different syndromes. And my previous speaker rightfully said that we should take our responsibility of illnesses. If we are ill, we are responsible, not anybody else. So how this responsibility comes? So this is, I want to tell something from the difference. What is the approach? The difference in the approach. So in the East, a person is in the center. In the West also, a person, an individual is in the center. But in the West, a person is very highly in the center. So everything is around, is a person-centric, or too much of individualism is there. So you can see that a person is surrounded by a family, or surrounded by the community, maybe surrounded by a little bigger aspect of social structure, or the nation and the universe. So you can see that a person is at the center, and everything is surrounded to it, but there is no heart-to-heart connection. And this East, everything is spirally connected, like this. So you can see that from the end to the here, there is no discontinuity. There is a continuous connection. This continuous connection is very important to understand between this difference of the Eastern philosophies of things or Western philosophies of things. So I would like to mention that this is based on, this particular approach is based on less desires. So if we have less desires, we are happy. So it is simple that if I do not have desire of having big car, and I am satisfied with my small car, and then I am happy. But if I have a small car and I am jealous to my neighbor's big car, then I am not happy. So it's like it says less desires, first thing. Second thing, go by flow principle. Go by flow. So you do not confront, you do not do violence, and you go by the flow of the river, where it takes you. But do not try to swim upstream. So if you try to swim upstream, means you have a struggle. You have to struggle. You have to confront. And confrontation is again one of the major cause of illness or unhappiness. So if we go by flow, it means that whatever is in front, we accept it as a situation, and then we go with that situation. We do not confront. So it means it looks very simple, but it is not simple to practice. It is not easy to practice, because I put my example of my real life, that I was working in 90s. I was working as a director of research of very big Ayurvedic research foundation in India. And then, because my wife is also an Ayurvedic professional, so she got a very good teaching job into another city. So I thought, okay, I leave that job and I start my practice. So I came and I left that job. I started my practice, and nobody knew in that new city. So nobody came to me. So for 6 months I was saying, oh my God, it was a big beautiful job and having a car, a big bungalow, and it's like a corporate job. And all of a sudden I was nowhere. So, but then now I realized that it was best decision I have ever taken, because then my practice flourished, and now we are a big institution parallel to that foundation where I was working. So, but it took time. It took time. So in India we have this saying that whatever happens, it is always for good. Whatever is happening, there should be some good thing inside. So now I think, if I got depression at that time for that 6 months or 8 months, nobody came, I might be rushed and I might be went into depression and doing nothing. But then I kept quiet, I kept courage, I developed my websites, and now, so whatever is happening is for good. This is also one of the message. So accept the situation, do not struggle, do not confront, and then look, okay, at this moment, maybe I am not able to understand, but it should be something good. There should be some good message inside. So this is also one of the beautiful thing to understand. And I was reading the outside, there is a beautiful caption. I was so happy to see that a child, a naughty child's posture is there, naughty child, and you can see the face expression, very mischievous expression on the face, and the child says that I am somebody, because the God not do any mistake. So God do not do any mistake making junk. So I am not a junk. I am a human being. So I am somebody. So don't take me seriously. I am somebody because God made me, and God do not make any junk. So this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful message. It means that whatever we are a human being, and we might have some cons and pros, but at the end of the day, God made us. So God do not manufacture any junk food or any junk thing. God manufacture good things. So we are all good. We just look at that, this goodness of each other. And last message of Ayurveda is that it talks about do best what is assigned to you. Means it is up to our intelligence here to visualize what is assigned to me, but do best. Best of the best, no less than the best, but without expecting the fruits. So this is difficult. That whenever we do something, we have some goal. That I go to the market to buy something. You are here because you wanted to know about this knowledge. So there was a goal to come here and then to participate in this conference, beautiful conference. I came to Curaçao, there was a goal to meet my dear students, Soraida, or meet the people, or work here because I am an Ayurvedic doctor. But it do not mean that you do not keep your eye at all to the goal. But the message is that just by looking at the fruits, you should not do anything. Fruits will come automatically. It should come, it has to come. But one should not do anything because they are going to get something. It should happen with each other's synchronicity or each other's balance. So if you do something, automatically the rest of the things should happen. But you do not do because it should happen. So this is difference. This is something, something higher than what we do on our day-to-day life. So these are different messages from Ayurveda, and it looks very spiritually higher or little distant. Not means it is little distance means it is not easy to practice. But friends, it is really very easy to practice. Those principles are really not difficult. So I will have simple physical suggestions how to go to those goals. Simple physical suggestions how to do that. Practical details how to achieve this harmony, and simple tips in different aspects of our life. The purpose is quality health, optimal health, and harmony and happiness. So the Ayurveda word, it is made of two basic terms in Sanskrit, is Ayu and Veda. Actually, in its definition, it says Ayu means life and Veda means science. So it is a knowledge or science of life. So when we talk about lifestyle, this is science of life, and not only a science of medicine or science of health only, but it is extended to life. Every aspect of life Ayurveda touches. This is the beautiful thing of Ayurveda. Ayurveda says that there are 4 dimensions of life. When we talk about the life, there are 4 dimensions. One is Hitayu, that is life with social well-being or socially or environmentally useful and responsible. So it is not only a happy life, it is not only a pleasure or healthy and happy life, but it talks about socially and environmentally responsible and useful life with healthy and happy life. So there are 2 goals, Hitayu and Sukhayu, but there are 2 dimensions, other dimensions which we should avoid. The first is life without social well-being or socially and environmentally irresponsible life, irresponsible. Other is life with all sufferings from all the directions, not only health. So the 2 number and 4 number should be avoided out of this 4 dimension, but 1 and 3, Hitayu and Sukhayu, should be projected, should be achieved, and we should do something so that we are more towards there and we do not get sufferings. So this is important. It is easy to understand how to stay healthy, how to stay unhealthy, or what are the sufferings and what is the healthy and happy life. But this is something more than that, responsibility. Responsibility is our social responsibility or responsibility towards the mother nature. So when we talk about really balanced life, we should be responsible. To whom? To everything around us. To family, to the society, to even nature. So I have some beautiful comparison what I want to convey. I will go quickly, but they are eye-opening. I quoted that comparison last year also. This is about the incidence of cancer into different parts of the world. I do not have precise incidence of cancer in Curaçao. I tried to research on internet, but there was no information. So a woman in the US has a 39% chance of being diagnosed with some types of cancer in their life, and 45% of men. This is eye-opening. So in a US where everything is so super developed, out of every 2 men almost, and out of every 3 women gets cancer in their life. In the Europe, 1 in 3 men and 1 in 4 women. So it is less, but still very, very scary. Out of every 4 women, 1 gets cancer, and out of every 3 men, 1 gets cancer. It is again very scary. Why? The question is, why in the developed world there is so much of incidence of cancer? We can have list of causes. We can have not 1,000 list of causes. But can we conclude why it is happening? This is a question. I want to compare between the incidence of cancer in India. The incidence of cancer in India is only 0.36% for men and only 0.45% for women. So it is like, you can see it is how far it is, from those countries and from India. And there is a popular debate or popular argument that because India is a very big country and there is no good mechanism of screening, so many patients dies without getting diagnosed by cancer. But if you know the statistics, there is a chance of error of 60% here. You add 60% to it. You add 60% to this incidence. Still, it is much less than the rest of the world. So the question is why and how? And when we compare with the infrastructure, per capita hospital beds, hospitals or expenditure on health is much less in India than the developed countries. And why those people are healthy and not getting cancer? And why those people who have everything, they are not deprived, why they get more cancer? This is the question. So I tried to find out I name it as the exploitation of the resources, exploitation of the nature. So the 12% of this population what we were talking about, they use 60% of the resources. And these countries, including India and sub-Saharan African countries, which have 33% of the world population, they use only 3% resources. So it is, I think it is, the base is here, the core issue. Exploitation, too much of exploitation of everything, including self. Possibly it has a backlash. Backlash is like that. If we hit somebody, we get a backlash. It's known as backlash. So or having hit it by the back of the hand, backlash. So this is a backlash of the Mother Nature. The Mother Nature is so angry that it is creating so much of different types of cancer. And out of 2 men, 1 gets cancer. It is too scary. Where in my country, maybe out of 100, 1 gets cancer. So it is like 45 times or 30 times or 39 times higher. So probably this is the cause. Exploitation of the nature. But not only nature, exploitation of the self from different perspective. Too much of individualism, it exploits us because we are emotionally not supported, because we are a family here. I was last year also here, and there is very strong family bonds here, which is lacking in the West. You are very near to the West, but not infected still. So it is good. You please go on, keep this quality with you. So exploitation of the self is individual exploitation in the form of emotional, in the form of over exploitation of the self by taking too much of big cups of coffee, or by eating big meals, by eating junk food, by not following the rules of food and lifestyle and sleep. Ayurveda has these 3 sub-pillars which I will explain. One sub-pillar is sleep. Sub-pillar means pillar of the life. There are 3 main pillars: Vata, Pitta, Kapha. 3 sub-pillar is food, sleep and regulated sex behavior. So there are 3: food, sleep and sex. So I will speak about that more after we eat something, because then it will go inside. Otherwise, if we are hungry, then nothing will go inside. So quickly I go through this introduction. We can correlate. This is like a sort of irresponsible life, what I was talking about, and Ayurveda principles of health, which advocates socially and environmental responsible lifestyle that has direct link with optimal health of an individual. So this is really very important thing. And I already mentioned, consider very low incidence of malignancy in different countries. By the strong family traditions, family bonds, or responsibility to the nature by using less and less resources. So this morning I asked Zoraida, give me a bucket, because I was not comfortable by using shower, because shower uses so much of water. So I thought, let me take a bucket and put, like on my head. So this is not my individual behavior. It is a behavior as a community, that we always think about using less resources as far as possible, so that the mother nature stays, blessed with us. So this is something very different. So about Ayurveda, this is the most ancient science of the world, considered as a subsidiary of main Vedas. Vedas are the oldest recorded wisdom on the earth. Ayurveda survived through several different texts, of authentic texts. These textbooks are still available, 5,000 years old. So I am practicing Ayurveda, but I have not invented anything. I am just a practitioner, which is being practiced in India since 5,000 years. So it is written in Sanskrit, and it deals with all aspects of life, health, disease and treatment. It is more life and health oriented than disease and treatment. So primary goal of the Ayurveda is life and health. Disease and treatment comes next. So approach is philosophical, holistic and humanistic. So it is very human. You do not exploit anybody, non-exploitation policy is followed. So it is very humanistic. So that way it presents total life science, visualizes the total health to the total human being in a holistic way. So it accepts a person as a combination of body, mind and soul. So we are a combination. So we should think about every aspect of our life. This is what Ayurveda thinks. So there are several specialities of Ayurveda. Why I put this? Because please consider that this is a very big science. There are several specializations. So an Ayurvedic doctor is not only a doctor of Ayurveda, but he might be some specialist of some science. I was talking about that we have this continuous interaction, individual and universe. So this interaction, if it goes well, then we are healthy. And Ayurveda has this principle of Panchamahabhuta, of 5 elements. These 5 elements are ether or space, air, fire, water and earth. So these are the 5 elements which we are made of and which the universe is made of. It means that we are the miniature replica of the universe. So we are representing universe in a very, very minute form. So this understanding lets us understand that we should have this harmony. If we are not in harmony, then we have something we have to face. So as I said, that there is Loka means universe, Purusha means individual. There is a constant interaction. Constant interaction. You take a glass of water or you eat, and then we grow like from child to the young, and then from young we have deterioration, and then we go back to the nature. Either we are buried or we are cremated. We came and we go from universe. So this is like a constant interaction. The purpose is to maintain homeostasis, the balance. So according to this, life is having these four facets, 4 areas. So in absence of one thing, life is not possible, Ayurveda says. You can see physical body, the Atma or conscious element or the soul, the Sattva or the mind, and Indriya is a sense organs. Ayurveda have this, there are 5 sense organs, is like visual, perception, hearing, touch, taste and smell. So there are 5 sense organs. So it says that in absence of these sense organs, in absence of body, in absence of Atma, in absence of mind, if anything is absent, life is not possible. So life should have all these things. A good combination and harmonious combination. If there is a harmony, no harmony, then we have a consequences of this disharmony. So the most important part of Ayurveda is the principles of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, because Ayurveda says that these 5 elements are being represented by 3 energies. Biological applications of these energies, they are known as Vata, Pitta and Kapha. So many of us do know about Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and so many of us have never heard. May I know who knows about something, who have heard about Vata, Pitta, Kapha? May I know, so that I have idea that.
Quem sabe Vata, Pitta, Kapha e quem não sabe, senão ku sabe isso não.
Almost
Half.
50% people already knew something about Vata, Pitta, Kapha. But let me just introduce. This is like the base of Ayurvedic physiology. But according to Ayurveda, it says Vata is emotional energy, is like movement, vibrant energy, represents air and space. So whatever is done by air and space in the universe is done by Vata in our body. All the movements is governed by all the movements, like blood circulation, our nerve impulses, physical movement, thought process, because it is also moving. So whatever is moving, even intracellular space, the nutrition is moving, whatever is moving is done by the Vata. So if Vata is angry, then we have problems. Then Pitta represents fire element. So all the biochemical activities, transformational energy is